Let's actually look, first of all, at your career before you joined BAFTA. Leaving university, you went and worked in radio, and then you transferred to television. How did you actually then move into children's television?
I moved from radio straight into children's. And I moved in, I applied for an attachment. In those days you had attachments, to a new programme which was going to be set up for BBC Two for preschool children. It didn't have a name. I'd never, ever been in a television studio. I knew absolutely nothing about television. We didn't have a television set at the time. And so I did a sort of crash course in children's television while I was at Bush House. And so I became a trainee researcher on what turned out to be play school.
You've established yourself in the industry, and you've been behind no end of incredibly successful productions, and you become a member of BAFTA. When you joined, did you have an idea that the organisation was perhaps a little behind in terms of the way that it perceived children's television?
It wasn't just BAFTA that was behind. I mean, it was the whole industry was behind. I mean, children's television was, as you said earlier, was developing and moving very, very fast and being very successful. But it received nothing like the public acknowledgement that it should have had. It still doesn't. But it's better than it was. And I don't think that was the reason I joined BAFTA, but I certainly was something that I wanted to pursue. And when I had, later on when I had more power and the ability to influence things in the wider world, then yes, I mean it was very important that BAFTA should recognise kids as an equally important area of output to anything else.
And when you started to sort of raise
to agitate,
what was the initial response?
Slightly bemused. I mean, they said, "Well, you've got the Rediffusion Star Awards, I think they were called. You know, there's 2 awards, one for children's and one for education, and you know, it all happens." And the fact that it happened and it was always cut out of any television, it was never on screen, I mean, ever. And, you know, 1 award for all kids' programmes and 1 award for all education programmes was rubbish, considering by then that the level of the output, not just in the BBC, but in ITV as well. I mean, ITV at that period was doing terrific stuff for kids. So it wasn't a proper recognition at all of the status of the genre. So that's why the agitation needed to happen. It was quite a hard slog. It was quite a hard slog. But I think that, you know, some people saw the sense of it, and I think gradually people became aware. But there was also a lot of a concern about creating more awards and was it a good idea, and there couldn't be any more in the main BAFTAs because there wasn't room for them. So what were we going to do? And it was sort of out of that grew the idea of, well, why not a separate set of children's BAFTAs? And some people got very excited about this, others didn't. But so that's how it started to happen, and that's how the children's committee or subcommittee or whatever it was called was set up and moved through. But if you look at I mean, it was quite late on. That was sort of 96 or something. And you know, children's television had been in its golden era for some time before we got that recognition.
So the committee's been set up. You're looking into a separate awards. At what stage did it become apparent that this was actually going to be realised? What
happened was that I think gradually it was accepted that something should be done, but it wasn't going to be done. It wasn't anything to do with the main awards. I mean, it was something completely separate. It mustn't look like the main awards. It mustn't be like the main awards at all. It was going to happen here in the BAFTA headquarters. It was going to be very small scale. there was a lot of argument about how much could be afforded for refreshments, and it was decided that the first one, it should be done in the cinema here, and there should be a sort of show to go with it, an entertainment. And indeed there was, and there were lots of presenters and things appeared, and that's how a completely different kind of concept from the grown-up BAFTAs. And then there was a great lot of argument about whether or not there should be a BAFTA mask, because BAFTA masks are sacrosanct. And so it was decided in the end that there could be a BAFTA mask, but it had to be a half size. It couldn't be the same as a grown-up BAFTA mask, because, you know, we're all so little. So it was a mini BAFTA mask. But we were very pleased to have it, because at last there was some kind of recognition. It wasn't enough, but, you know, it was a beginning. Some of the BAFTA staff were hugely supportive, and I think very excited by it, because it sounded quite a lot of fun. I mean, children's people are fun, you see. And I think there was a will to do it, and it was pushed through. I mean, it was pushed through. I mean, I think some of the higher echelons were less enthusiastic.
And then outside of BAFTA, gaining the support, both financial and just the moral support from organisations, because it strikes me, you look at the BBC and the ITV, it would be in their best interests to have something that they could promote to show the excellence of their programming.
You would assume that, yes. But no, I mean, I think you've got to realise that children's programming it's ridiculous, has always been considered, and I think probably still is, as something minor, which is absurd considering that you are grooming the audience of the future. You have a huge social responsibility, and certainly a public broadcaster like the BBC has. The BBC has always respected its children's output, but it's never really taken much notice of it. And it's only at times like now with charter renewal, and it happened when I was there and we had another charter renewal, the same thing. Children's suddenly becomes actually quite important, which of course it is. It's one of the core bits of the BBC. But, you know, channel controllers and things never used to come near it. Well, in a way that was an advantage, because you could get away with an awful lot. I mean, I did an awful lot without telling anyone what I was doing, and if you'd been part of the mainstream, that might have been a bit more difficult. But at programme review, there used to be this dreadful meeting at the BBC every Wednesday morning in the conference room, where you went through the week's radio times, past week's radio times, and you discussed programmes. And you were also given homework. There were certain programmes you had to watch. It was terribly competitive. It's where everyone used to perform. And if you got anyone talking about a children's programme, it was a miracle. I mean, the only person I can remember, well, no, that's not entirely true. I'm not bitter about this. Lovely Cliff Morgan, who was head of sport, was always very supportive of children's programmes. And there were one or two people, some of the drama people were. But on the whole, most of them never looked at it.
The way that you've taken children's television seriously, it's very interesting that a quote that actually comes from you, but it appears in a review of your history of children's television in the Box of Delights, which I think was published around 92, 93. Yeah. The best children's television has always taken its audience seriously. Strikes me that the awards and what you were doing in BAFTA is part of this whole kind of fight to actually take it seriously.
Yes, I mean, of course it is, and it's very good that the industry and, you know, the children's BAFTA awards now are a proper recognition of what's going on in the industry, and very good indeed. And it's wonderful that they're there. It's just a pity it didn't happen sooner, really. But no, children's television programme, media, whatever you like to call it, should be taken seriously, because children are more important than any other audience.
Lord Putnam is one of the towering figures of the British film industry. As a producer, he won an Oscar for his work on Chariots of Fire. He also won a BAFTA for that film and a Michael Balkan Award. He also won a BAFTA for Best Film for his work on The Killing Fields. And in 2006, he was awarded an Academy Fellowship.